There we go.
All right, everybody, this is the Pro Zone, and joining me today, it's been way too long since we've been trying to get this together, and it's finally together after months and months of mishaps and some fucking pandemic and all this other crap. But ring announcer extraordinaire Matt Dacorte is here today. Matt, how the hell are you today, man?
I'm doing great, Rick. And, we got together over the weekend a little bit, hung out a
Yeah,
little bit at the record store, and
yeah.
that was some good times. And like you said, this has been in the planning for
Early
quite a
spring.
while, but, better late than never,
Yeah,
as they say.
that's
Looking
right.
very forward to our conversation today. I don't know what kind of roads we're going to travel, but I'm excited to see where the journey takes us. So,
Well, as I said, I think yesterday, I said, I'm not preparing for this. We're just going to shoot because, certain people, I just like to sit there and just talk with.
absolutely.
That's it.
That's how the best
Let's talk with.
conversations come through, in my opinion. So I'm right there
Absolutely.
with you, my friend.
So, Matt, when did you discover professional wrestling? And, I think we talked about this yesterday. So,
Yeah, it was a while ago. I was born in 1988, and
it's a great year.
so by the time I discovered wrestling, I think around, I want to say 9, 10 years old. It was in middle school because
Right.
I think my first experience with it was we were at a Halloween party, actually, and a friend of mine had a black coat on, a black tank top, and his face was painted white. And I said, "Who are you supposed to be?" And he said, "I'm Sting." And I said,
Oh,
"What's a Sting?" And so then I learned what WCW was, and I learned about the world of professional wrestling. And as I'm sure you know, in the mid to late 90s, the Attitude Era, the Monday Night
right.
Wars were all the rage. Everyone was watching wrestling,
Absolutely.
and that's how I got into it, and been a fan on and off ever since, and definitely more on than not nowadays. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
I was going to say, more on for me as well. I mean, I've been watching close to 40 years. I'm going to be 45 in just a few weeks. And I discovered it in probably 1984. So, it's been an interesting ride. I've never really stopped for more than like a year or two. So it's there are very little things I don't remember. That's why I'm called the professor. But
Exactly.
so was your earliest memory outside of that Halloween costume? I mean, that's kind of, I find that a little strange that somebody was a WCW character in that you grew up in Connecticut.
Yes, sir.
So I find that kind of weird because we're in WWE territory. So
Right, right.
so
Well, I think at the time, I mean, I'm pretty sure like we were all watching both. Even some
hmm
ECW when there. I would sneak
hmm
that in every Friday nights when my parents would go out for to have dinner or go shopping or do whatever, and so they'd leave me
right.
alone, and I'd throw that, and I was on TNN at the time, and so that's
That's
as
right.
soon as I saw the lights in the drive, I'd be like, oh, and try and turn it off, but. But yeah, we would watch everything. I think it was just like I said, it was at a Halloween thing, and so I mean that the character Sting at the time kind of lended himself to kids dressing up as him,
Right.
with the face paint and everything and all that. But yeah, I mean we watched them both back then, and
Yep.
and I sure did. My three favorites at the time were Stone Cold, The Rock, and Goldberg, and
Right.
Sting was very close behind that, and then you had your Chris Jerichos, your Ravens, and all those folk, and it's always fun for me looking back and remembering the times, from when I first got into it, and all the
Right.
characters and performers of that era.
Why don't you tell us about how you got into professional wrestling, the business side of it?
Like how I became more than a
Involved.
fan, I should say.
Yes, more than a fan.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Well, the story of my life has pretty much been right place, right time, and it's been like that for just about everything. In terms of wrestling, there was a time. Right now, I work in basically construction administration,
hmm
and I have for most of the past few years. But there was a time where my degree is, believe it or not, in journalism from the University of Rhode Island. Cheap plug right there.
Awesome.
But that aside, I always wanted to use it. I always wanted to write stories. I wanted to be a sports or entertainment writer. And um, long story short, I got into it late and it didn't really work out. But during that time, I did report for a local paper in East Haven. And one of the big things I took away from that gig was I got to meet and become friendly with a number of very cool and interesting people in the East Haven, North Haven area. And one of those people was Big Steve Tracy, the former Dave Paradise, one of the Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling 4 with Paul Roma, Paul Perez, Mario Mancini. And he just asked me one day after we were talking about stuff for a news story I was working on. He said, "Hey, Matt, do you like wrestling?" And I said, "I sure do, Steve." And he invited me to go see a show, and I went as a fan, and I really enjoyed it. And a few weeks later, I was talking to him again, and I was actually about getting ready to leave the paper at the time. Like I said, it was just too late, in my personal life to try and go into a career that doesn't pay very much to start off on.
Right.
And so I had to, but either way, that's another story for another day. But so I said, all right, yeah, no, I'd love to get involved. It won't be a conflict of interest since I'm leaving the paper, and getting involved in a wrestling promotion would a childhood dream. And so he put me in touch with Mario. Mario put me in touch with Big Daddy, and I got my start doing commentary at like 2 or 3 matches a night on the big shows with Big Daddy. And him and I had a pretty good chemistry. He's one of my mentors in terms of not just commentating, but also ring announcing and social media presence as well. He really pushed me with that. So, big props to Big Daddy for that. And also just, big shout out to Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling as a whole. I mentioned Big Steve, Mario, Paul Perez, Paul Roma. They took a shot on me when they absolutely didn't have to, and without them letting me, get my feet wet and experimenting a little bit, there would be no Matt Dacorte. I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now. So always big shout out, big thank you to them. And yeah, so just getting back to that, I did the commentary for a while, and there was a needed ring announcer one night, and Mario went up to me the week before the show because we were running back-to-back weekends, and he said, "Hey, kid, can you practice in the mirror for me?" And I said, "Why is that?" And he's like, he points in the ring, he goes, "That's going to be you next week." And I was just like, whoa.
Wow.
So, and I always, through what people had told me, I kind of knew that, I had the quote-unquote voice for radio or face for radio or whatever, whatever the saying was, but I never knew like I could be. I never had done anything like that really before, except for a few open mics with some friends, rock bands, and it was really fun to pull it out of me. And the first time I did it, I was so raw. Like Bill Thompson will tell you, he saw me with the card in my hand, and my hand was shaking like just uncontrollably, and just because I was so nervous / excited to do it. And now it's second nature, and I absolutely love it. And I'm just so glad I got this opportunity, and I'm very glad I've been able to take it farther than I've ever could have imagined. So
that's awesome. So you took to it pretty good as far as the commentator for the shows as well. Like you said, you mentored under Big Daddy. Did you I'm sure there's a sense of nervousness, but you took to it pretty right away. It's I know there's probably some botches, maybe, I don't know, but I'm nervous every time I turn on the microphone. So I always gotta, if I'm doing something myself, I gotta record it 3 or 4 times, or else, but sometimes I just fucking edit the show and just, put it up as it is. So
yeah, and that's one thing that, going along those lines, one thing that Big Daddy always taught me is that there's no such thing as a perfect broadcast, and especially with me, I'm my own worst critic, and even if they're 10 out of 10 people I talk to, whether it's, commentary, ring announcing, interviews, what have you, say, "Oh, you did such a great job." There's always one thing, no matter how big or little it is, that's in my head that I said I could have done that better. But that's the thing is I like to stay humble, and I know in this business how quickly it can all go away. And so I just remind myself to stay humble, stay hungry, and keep grinding. And again, I just want to see how far I can take it. So
Paradise Alley was the first promotion that you worked with. You branched out in the last year and a half to different organizations as well.
Yeah.
With, say, Shut Up and Wrestle, Test of Strength, and there's another one there too, right? Another one.
Yeah, the most recent one is Blood, Sweat, and Tears. That Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling original Dustin Flash Waller is in the main event picture there with
Okay.
Blood, Sweat, and Tears champion Lucas Chase. They've had a big feud going on, a big rivalry, and it's been brewing over the past few months. And they've been on the Top Rope Report, Mr. Trivia, who I think you and I are both familiar with.
Shout out! I've been on his show before. He's been on here before as well, and I'm looking to get those guys back on here at some time in the future. They're a good bunch of guys.
Absolutely, yeah. Fun little fact about them is that they were the first kind of podcast / interview radio show, whatever you want to call it, that I ever did. So shout out to those guys as well. And so they that's been building. They got and they had a small ring in their last 2 shows that they did, but that was, I think, mostly because of the guidelines with the pandemic going on, and they had to maximize the space and whatnot. But they pulled off 2 really good shows, and what they're doing is working, because when Flash came out that one time, he had a big 450 on Lucas. The place just erupted, and that's how you know that's how you know it's working. So
I've seen some clips. I've seen some clips on Facebook, and I haven't watched the whole shows as of yet. But it seems like a really cool, cool promotion. And that room that they're promoting in is really small. The acoustic, the venue. Yeah, I think. What'd you say yesterday? It's less than 100 people fit in there? Or no?
I don't know what the tops are, because obviously I haven't done a show for them in the pre-COVID era. It was only in the current era, unfortunately. Right. But so it's kind of hard to gauge, because I think they had, with the guidelines, you have to cap it at a certain amount of people. I'm not sure what the exact number is, but as far as I know, both their shows were sold out, and so that's a good thing. I say that because not only is it a good thing because I want Blood, Sweat, and Tears to be successful, because I think they have a good thing going, but just for the independent industry as a whole, because they took the biggest hit. And unfortunately, not all these promotions are like WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, where they can afford to put on empty arena shows with a TV deal and still get revenue to continue to produce. And I was very concerned that a lot of it was going to go away. And just based on the receptions, like I said, the fact that even though it was limited numbers, the people did come out, that gives me hope that, everything it may not go back completely to normal, but at the very least, it's going to be okay. So
I think prior to the pandemic, really taking over, the independent scene was basically on fire, the hottest it's been in a number of years. It was
for sure.
I think in one night in Paradise Alley, it was at the Annex. I was talking to Big Daddy, and he's telling me there's 6 shows that particular night in state, and I was like, Jesus Christ, man, that's freaking crazy, because I'm just I'm always looking for shows. If there's not the Paradise Alley show, it's you guys are closest to me, I'll definitely go to you guys. But I'm always looking for other shows when there's nothing on. It's just sometimes it's you don't always hear about these shows. I'm just how is there 6 shows in the States? I remember for a long time, especially in the earlier 2000s, it was a very dark period in professional wrestling. It was you'd be lucky if you got 1 show a month or once every other month. I remember Connecticut Championship Wrestling was a group that would run every 2 months or something like that, and they were a lot of fun. Big Daddy actually did commentary on them too. I remember back in the day. So.
Oh yeah. And go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, just going along that, I mean, before everything stopped in March, there were independent shows up and down the New England tri-state area, probably at least 2 or 3 Monday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, every weekend, and they were good houses there too. So it was, and that's, like I said, that's a great thing, because you look at WWE and AEW, and they're going to need to get new talent at some point from places. Absolutely. So the more the independents thrive, the more these other promotions can. It's a very symbiotic relationship, and and I don't know if it'll go back to the volume that we had back in March and prior, but like I said, if we can get close, then that's a win in my book. So
I think right now it's a testing period as to see what's going to happen. I mean, you guys just ran 3 shows in one day. I was there for good portion of it. It was long, but it was fun, and it was such a relief to go and get out and go to a live wrestling show because,
Hmm.
like, prior to the pandemic, I was at pretty much, you guys were running show once or twice a month, sometimes 3 times in a month, and I was, and then all of a sudden it just dropped off, and for 6 months there's absolutely nothing, and so it's
Hmm.
like it was a big relief to actually get out and go to a show, and it was a lot of fun. See see some familiar faces, and then see a bunch of new talent that came in uh, to the venue too, which was also very cool that I had never seen in that promotion. So that was a lot of fun as well.
Oh yeah, and again, a lot of the same sentiments. And what was special about that to me was, I had actually after I did one kind of like undisclosed, like YouTube only show for a promotion called WCWE a
Yep.
little earlier, but even then, that was the only one I had from March. Well, unless you also want to count the empty arena stuff that PAPW did too. I
Yep.
was a part of the big Jim Anderson Bull Dread
I
match,
saw
whether
it.
I
Yep.
wanted to or not. I just kind of got sucked into it. But um, yeah, not counting those things, like up until last month, I just had that the couple PAPW things and then the one WCWE undisclosed, and it was tough because I do what I do because I love it. It doesn't matter if I make $5,
Right.
$20, $50, $1,000. I do it because this is some of the most fun I've ever had in my life, and it's a chance to show a different side of me that people
Right.
at face value probably wouldn't realize that I like getting dressed up all nice in a suit every weekend, and say wrestlers' names real nicely into a microphone. So um, but not having that, it was just so tough because
Right.
and not only that too, there was no movies coming out, which is something I like
That's
too.
right.
Couldn't go
Yeah.
to the casino, no concerts.
Oh,
Like there
that's
was
the part
just
that's the concert thing is the one that's killing me as well outside of professional wrestling because
oh for sure.
I'm always going to places like Cafe Nine or Toads or
Hmm.
wherever to go to shows or the casino even. It's
Exactly, yeah.
but nothing. Everything that was coming up was just washed away. Like anything that was really cool that was coming up, and then ZZ Top was supposed to be coming to town, and that was just taken away because I was really looking forward to it. You know.
Oh, man, no, I can only imagine. I hear you. and and that's kind of what was so great about it, because once August started, I went from basically having one or two things to all of a sudden having four shows, one of which was actually three in one day.
Right.
So, and I'm just very grateful that knock on wood, Connecticut's been doing real well, and we've been able to do something. And big shout out to Blood, Sweat, and Tears, to Test of Strength, and of course Paradise Alley for
Right.
putting on all being able to put on all these events and being able to do it in a safe manner. And
Right.
again, a
Excuse me.
big props to all the fans that came out too for wearing their masks, staying distance and following the rules. Because without all that stuff, without those protocols, we probably wouldn't be able to do this. So I'm
Right.
very fortunate because I was getting pretty stir crazy towards a few
Uh,
months ago.
yeah, me too. And I'm sure you've seen that I've spent quite a bit of money on wrestling merchandise just to keep myself. Couldn't spend it at shows,
I've
so I've
seen your
been.
unboxing videos, my friend.
Yeah, I've been buying, DVDs, autographs. I think I've amassed like a really intense autograph collection in the last like 6 months, which is, never really went too crazy on them. But when you start seeing little things, of like, oh man, I need that. So it's just, and I think I've also purchased something like 60 wrestling shirts in that whole entire time. So I'm just like, I need to calm down. I finally calmed down. So it's just like it's becoming like a once a month thing rather than getting 4 or 5 packages a week.
Hey,
So
as a fellow collector, I completely
yeah.
understand.
I mean,
I found,
yeah. I've noticed that you're a thrift store junkie as well, kind of like similar to me as
oh yeah,
well. And we've discussed this before that you collect VHS tapes, DVDs, records, all sorts of random stuff, and comic book stuff too, right?
oh absolutely, yeah. No, I'm a physical media junkie.
Me too.
Yeah, and so it's not only that too, but I'm also like you said, a big collector of everything.
Yep.
I being an only child, I'm kind of fortunate, to,
Right.
well, I shouldn't say. It was just one of those things. I think it was just because I was just so used to, getting what I wanted, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I just, like you were saying,
Right.
if there's
He
something
was
like,
spoiled.
if I'm just like walking down and I'm just like, oh, this is CD looks cool, I'm just gonna get it,
Yes.
but thankfully I am, good with my money. I just, I think I told you I just moved into a condo, very first time homeowner. So
Congratulations.
thank you. So I am smart with it, but if I see something good for 10-15 bucks, I can spare that once every week. So
yeah. What drew you to? Because you grew up in an era where VHS tapes were kind of out of moving out, right? I mean, by the time you were getting old enough, what made you decide to start purchasing them? I think you started purchasing them. If I'm correct,
yeah,
right?
well, it was one of those things where it was always just kind of fun to see like people's reactions, because we live in the streaming era, as I'll call it now.
All right. Yeah, you're right.
Where a lot of people are just doing away with not only cable but all kinds of physical media. And I just remember a few years ago, I lived with a couple of friends, and one of them was dating a girl at the time. And she came over and she noticed, she's like, oh my God, you still have a VHS player? And she's like, do you have any tapes? And I was like, oh yeah, let me show you what I got. And, I have like a bunch of old Adam Sandler ones, like, like Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore. And then I think they actually settled on Twister with Bill Paxton.
That movie?
I got to admit, it's a pretty guilty pleasure for me. But yeah, and it's just one of those things too. Like every now and then, like if I didn't have like a wrestling show booked, before the pandemic era, there was where I lived in East Haven, there was a Goodwill right down the street. So you go there. Most of the time, they have like 50% off sales, like just about every other weekend.
Absolutely.
So.
Is that the one on Foxen Road? Is that the one you're referring to? Or?
It's the one that's right over the Brantford East Haven line.
Gotcha.
Over by Brantford Hill.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good one, because I lived over there, in between marriages, but the laundromat that's around the corner, that's where I used to go and do my laundry. So I used to spend all my time in that Goodwill, and I used to come home. Not only am I, similar to you with collecting physical media, but I'm also like a stereo junkie. If I see a stereo that's in a Goodwill, I'm just going to take it and buy it. And at one time I had stereos just stacked up in my fucking basement and stuff. And it's made me bond with Vince Russo not so long ago on social media. Because he's also like a huge stereo collector as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are times that I've walked in there and I spent $2 and I'll walk out, with like the Terminator, Halloween, and 2 Ted Nugent records, and I'm just like, for $2, it's like, geez,
that's not bad. Yeah.
It's like I've done far worse things with $2 than spend it on stuff like that, and and like I said, it's just cool too, because with the VHSs, it's just something where. I got to admit, I'm a little weird in my philosophy, but it's just like I just want people to remember it, and if I could be like a catalyst to that, like, oh my God, somebody still has this, it's almost like an antique, like right now, kind of. And so that's my logic with that, is that it's just, I like preserving technology from a bygone era. And
that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. I got my 14-year-old. I have my 14-year-old son now is buying VHS tapes. Going down to the thrift stores. We usually, when they come and visit, we go hit up every thrift store on Hamden. His big thing is collecting old like cartoons or like superhero stuff that's on VHS. Like we actually got the 1960s Batman movie on VHS.
No way.
Yeah, that and a bunch of those type. The Scooby Doo. He's a huge Scooby Doo fan and Hanna-Barbera fan. So he at 14 years old. And the last time I were here this weekend, he actually hooked up the VCR and started watching a bunch of the stuff that we had. So it was kind of cool.
See, that's so cool to me, because like all that stuff you mentioned, the Scooby-Doo, the Hanna-Barbera, that's what I grew up on right there.
That's all stuff I grew up on. Yeah,
exactly. So that's the thing. I mean, if I was in your household, I'd probably be sitting right there with you guys watching it. So
we'll have to arrange that sometime. So go through the collection,
my friend.
Yeah. So you also collect records as well.
Oh, hell yeah.
And What's your primary thing? I remember yesterday you said you had a bunch of crates full of records. What kind of stuff do you got there?
It's kind of funny because I got a couple things at the store the other day, and I actually wanted to check and make sure I didn't have them on any other formats.
Right.
I wasn't quite sure because it's gotten a little ridiculous, but it is under control now, thankfully. But
Yeah.
My primary go-to is heavy metal.
Right.
Heavy metal came along at a point in my life where I needed something to kind of latch onto
Right.
and feel like a sense of belonging. And for all the stereotypes that people want to give the heavy metal community, it's one of the most accepting communities that there is.
It is.
I can't tell you the amount of times that I've been out waiting in line outside a club or a venue, and the guy in front of me is wearing had some crazy haircut, wearing like a leather jacket with all kinds of patches and smoking a cigarette. Turns to me, look at my shirt, and will be like, "Dude, that's a killer shirt." And then you hit it off, and
You make friends.
you were talking to him the whole time, and that was always just so cool to me. And so yeah, because of that, because of it's just I like it. I love all kinds of heavy metal, glam metal, new metal, thrash, death. All encompassing. If it's got metal in it, I'll at least give it a chance. And so
what is your favorite band?
My favorite band is actually they're pretty unknown even by metal. Well, I shouldn't say even by metal standards, but they're a band called Nevermore.
I've heard of them. I'm not familiar. I think that's a little bit past the time that I was listening to that kind of music. But I know the name.
First started coming out in the mid 90s. I obviously didn't hear about them until about 2005-ish, I want to say. But they're one of the most unique bands I've ever heard. Definitely one of the most unique bands I've ever heard, and one of the best. My personal favorite, obviously, but their lead singer is a guy, rest in peace, Warrell Dane. He unfortunately passed a few years ago, but he had one of the most unique vocal ranges in heavy metal and hard rock. Their guitarist Jeff Loomis, for a while he played exclusively 7-string guitar, and
really,
and some of the chords and riffs and progressions and songs that he would do was just absolutely mind blowing. Not to mention the fact that his solos were both incredibly technical and ridiculously fast. And so, in my opinion, he's my favorite guitarist. I think he's the best guitarist on the planet. Obviously, there are some people that would debate that with me, rightfully so. But in my opinion, at the very least, he should be considered up there in the top echelon of greatest all-time players. And it's just rounded out by a great rhythm section, Van Williams and Jim Shepard. And together and the last album that they made together was in 2010. And one of the things I really liked about them was that all of their albums sounded different, but distinctly them. If you can kind of
they had a sound, but they progressed.
Right, and they changed it up, but at the same time, you could hear a song and just instantly know it's them, no matter how it sounded. And their last album was kind of like the perfect combination of everything that they had ever done, and to me, it was their magnum opus. And just the fact that to me they ended on their best work, it kind of just makes it. It kind of sucks because at the same time you want to see them continue. And like I said, with Warrell's passing, unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen. But but at the same time, I mean, it goes back to the age-old question: is it better to burn out or fade away? So
there's many bands, that I've. My favorite band actually, my two favorite bands probably continued way longer than they probably should have. One has been around for close to 50 years now. Cheap Trick. Okay. Forming in the early 70s, and as much as I love them, I do believe that they do come out with a good record every now and again, but some of it's kind of, mediocre. Maybe they should have just saved all those good songs for a record and not put them out as frequently. But there's also REM, and I think that they had a couple stinkers in their later days. But I think the record that they closed with when they broke up was a phenomenal record. I love that. Are you a fan of black metal at all?
Not as much as other genres, but yeah, no,
Right.
I will listen to it, and it's kind of crazy because like there's all kinds of subcategories too. There's like
Oh yeah.
symphonic black metal, like your Dimmu Borgirs
Right.
or you know some other bands. But yeah, no, like I said, I'll give anything a chance. And
It's
some of that symphonic stuff is actually pretty cool. So
some of it's become really strange that there's so many subcategories. I mean, black metal in itself is a subgenre, but
yeah,
I'm gonna pull out a DVD. I was just looking for it.
sure.
Have you ever seen, or Blu-ray rather? Have you ever seen Lords of Chaos? You
I
should
want to
see it.
say I've heard of it, but I can't say for sure. Refresh my memory.
You know the band Mayhem, the singer.
Yes,
Him and his
yes, yes,
buddy,
yes, yes,
they
yes,
killed his
yes, yes.
buddy. There was a book. The book is phenomenal, and then there's a documentary as well. This is like the film, like the film based on the whole entire story, starring Macaulay Culkin's brother. What's his name, Rory or whatever.
Wow.
But I just
No
got
way.
this. I just got this recently. I haven't opened it yet, but the story is a very interesting story. And I got it. I subscribe to like a horror Blu-ray thing, like a mystery box that I get every month. So
Cool.
they give you 4 random horror Blu-rays, and this was in the last one. I got a little excited because I read the book before, and it was really interesting, very
Yeah,
detailed
the
on.
Mayhem is
Oh,
definitely their story for
it's
sure
pretty
is
crazy.
something
Yeah,
that is let's just say it's interesting at the
right.
very least, but it
It's pretty
fascinating
fucked up.
in a weird
Pretty,
way. Yeah.
yeah. But it is very fascinating. There was a lot of really weird news stories back in the day around that whole entire thing. That you go on YouTube, you can watch a lot of weird like news clips based on that.
Oh yeah.
So you also mentioned that you did open mics, and I believe I
Yes.
heard you at one time say that you performed in some garage bands here and there. Well, why don't you enlighten me? Tell me a little
Well,
more.
there was nothing ever really too official. I have a couple of friends who are pretty good musicians. Like one of my friends is a very skilled drummer. Another one is a really good songwriter. He's also a pretty good guitarist. And for a while, they got together and they had a band going. They would play local venues and they would do some open mic work at a place in West Haven. I believe it was called what the heck was it? Savin Rock. I think Savin Rock Roasting
Oh,
Company. I think that
yeah,
somewhere down in West Haven there.
yeah. That's I've heard of that before. I used to live down in that
Yeah,
area. Yeah,
yeah,
I know
and
they
so
used to do a lot of that stuff there. A lot of like bands used to play there quite frequently. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and so every now and then, because like I was, like I said, I always had a penchant, for being like a front man or like an MC or something like that.
Right.
So they would say, oh hey, do you want to do this song with us? Do you want to do this song with us? And every now and then I just oh yeah, we do a couple songs here and there. And there was one night in particular where I was getting ready to go to bed. I had had a long week and it was on a Sunday. And so they were just like, oh, come on, you got to come out and do this. It's a glow light theme, this and that. And I'm just like, all right, fine, whatever. So I chugged a cup of coffee. I went down there in my Stardust mask. I had like some Mardi Gras beads that one of my roommates had lying around the house, some other crazy stuff I just threw on.
Right.
And I looked like an idiot. And like I was just, like pelvic thrusting the mic, rolling around on the floor. And I thought, I was going to get kicked out. And that's kind of what I wanted because I really just wanted to go home and go to bed. But lo and behold, everybody, like, I shouldn't say everybody, but like half the people in there were coming up to me afterwards. They're like, dude, that was awesome. Like, you rocked out so hard on there. I was like, really?
Really? Yeah. Right.
So yeah, no, and that's kind of when I kind of realized I was like, I might be able to do something with this,
Right. Right. So going back to professional wrestling, I know one of the last time I talked to you, you said you stopped watching for a little while. Obviously, you were getting older, college age, started chasing girls around. That's what happens at that age. And then you ended up getting back into it. And what year did you end up getting back into it?
I want to
I know
say
I'm
I
bouncing
know
around a little bit.
exactly when it was. It was when
Right.
did the WWE Network launch?
6 years ago, probably.
Yeah,
I've
that's
been
exactly it because
right,
it was right around the advent of the network launching when I got back
right,
into it.
right.
And well, I shouldn't say that. I had started getting back into it in 2011 because before I stopped, before I took a hiatus altogether, which was around 2007, 2008, I was strictly watching TNA, Impact, whatever it was called at the time, and like Ring of Honor, CZW, and any other independent stuff I could find on YouTube at the time before
Right.
there was all those restrictions and regulations and whatnot.
Right.
And so the reason why I kind of got back into it then was because in 2011, that was when CM Punk started really making a name for himself.
Right.
So, and he was one of my favorites at the time. I'd watched the trilogy of matches that he had with Samoa Joe. Those were excellent. He was a gifted talker. He was unique in the ring. He had a moveset that I really hadn't seen at the time. And
Right.
that's kind of when, I kind of got into that style of wrestling that, the Ring of Honors, the Impacts were doing. And so when he started, breaking out there, then that's when I was really only paying attention to him, but there were some other things too that caught my eye. The Kofi Kingston / Evan Bourne, Matt Sydal, whatever he was going by at the time, tag team. They were tag team champions. Unfortunately, that didn't last that long, but when it did, I thought it was really good. So that was kind of going on at the time too. And so that kind of was in the back of my mind that was going on. But then, as the Punk run kind of fizzled out a little bit, then I started fizzling out again too. But what brought me back to it then was when the network era started, was because all the other guys I was watching on the independents at the time, your Claudio Castagnolis, who's Cesaro now, Daniel Bryan, was getting to be his turn at WrestleMania 30, the Yeselmania, whatever they wanted to call it, that was going on. He was there. And then there were, the Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, the Shield. The Shield was killing it. And to me, they should have kept them together a lot longer than they did.
I feel that way. They had a really good run in NXT, and it's always when something really is awesome in NXT and then comes up to the main roster, and then it just gets wiped out like relatively quickly. Yeah. So you get what I'm saying. It's like,
oh god, yeah. And
that's another thing
and speaking of which, too, what really sold me on getting back into it was the match that sucked me back in was I saw Cesaro wrestle John Cena, and at first I put it on as like me and my friend it was like a Saturday night. We weren't doing anything for whatever reason, and they were doing like the 2-hour truncated version on some other USA offshoot
it's
network.
Like the replays.
And so there was Corporate Kane was a thing at the time, so we put it on. We were just ripping on that. We're just like, what the like Kane needs to be with fire and brimstone. What is it with the suits and the bald head? Like, no. So we were just riffing on that. But then Cesaro and John Cena came on. We were dead silent through the whole thing. And then after it was over, I looked at him. I was like, was that like a really good match, or was that just me?
No, I gotta tell you, like, that's one of Cena's best matches. I think is I always knocked him because he was corny, but I always admired his work that he would do outside of wrestling, his charity work. So it's like, I think he's a boring wrestler. He's corny, but he's a really good human being.
Oh, sure.
And then I saw him wrestle Claudio, and then I saw him wrestle CM Punk, where when they were doing the 2 belts, and it's the first time I'd ever seen John Cena actually mat wrestle and do like chain wrestling. And I was just like, holy shit, this guy can actually match Punk move for move. So I ended up changing my opinion on him, but I still didn't become a fan. But I just
I hear you, because I was in the same boat. Back in when they were doing the ECW One Night Stand, when he came out against Rob Van Dam, and people were just crapping on it. That was like freaking Mardi Gras for me. Like.
I thought it was hilarious. The sign that was held up: if Cena wins, we riot. And I was just like, it's true though. They probably would.
Yeah, that crowd, they would have.
ECW.
Yeah, they were torn down that ring.
That was just a warning. It wasn't a joke. It was a warning.
No, that wasn't. What does Paul Heyman say? It's not a spoiler. It's not a prediction. It's a spoiler or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, and. I kind of feel the same way about that too, because for a while it was a cool thing, to make fun and hate on John Cena.
Right.
Then it's like you look at it, like what were some of the best matches during the modern era? John Cena against CM Punk, John Cena against Daniel Bryan, John
Right.
Cena versus Cesaro, John Cena
Right.
versus Kevin Owens. What's the one common denominator there?
Cena, right. So
And
he shows that he could just not be just a character. He could wrestle when he's put in there, with the right guys and he can go move for move with a lot of these guys. So he just, he's built up as a character to do a certain thing and get over and suck in that mainstream audience.
Mm-hmm. And that you summed it up perfectly there. And that's another thing we talked about too was during this pandemic era is the no crowds. And
right.
the one thing that even if Cena was a little behind those other guys, the one
right.
thing that brought it back was the fact that no matter if they were booing him or cheering him, he always got the crowd to work with it. And that the crowd, especially in WWE and especially in NXT, that
right.
is played to me is is a big part of what makes it special.
The other thing about Cena is that he didn't care if he got booed. He embraced it.
Mm-hmm.
He would sit there. He was still having a good time, and he would smile and keep going. He liked it.
Yeah.
And, it's like, I know you hate me, but they're paying me to do this. So I'm doing it. He would goof on it when he went out there. But it's one of the things that we're talking about Cena against Claudio, and I'm surprised that they've never given Claudio the title. He's been shown to be a really good hand, and a lot of people are like, he doesn't have that personality. He needs a talker. But I'm just like, he's one of the greatest wrestlers they've had there in the last 15, 20 years as far as like pure wrestlers.
I mean, for my money, he's probably the best all-around wrestler there is right now.
And that guy is incredible. Like, he's got an incredible strength. I know he's like a superhuman. It's like I've heard some crazy stories about his exercise regimen.
Oh yeah.
So I remember I used to watch him. Did you ever go to the Wrestle Jam events ever, like when they were in Connecticut?
I caught one that they did in East Haven.
I wonder if
I forgot when it was. It was like about a year, I think, before I started working for PAPW or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was right around that time that I was.
Was Claudio? I don't think he was there because I remember seeing Claudio here he wrestled that one in Hamden at the Elks Lodge, and it was that guy is quite impressive. It was probably like a year or so before he signed with WWE, if I remember the time. Sometimes the memory is a little hazy when it comes to time periods and when people move over, but
yeah. But no, I can definitely corroborate that he was on those cards because the show I went to was a charity show for a little girl fighting cancer. And so all their merch sales were going directly to the charity. So I bought one of their DVDs, and he was in like 2 or 3 of the matches, and that's part of the reason why I bought it. So it's because he is one of my favorite. Because just watching him in the ring, he can do stuff that no one else can do, and he makes everybody look like $1 million, and it's just so much fun to watch.
That's what he did with Cena. He made him look like $1 million. I mean, that was a phenomenal match. And the funny thing about it, I'm going to say it again, it's like right there at that time period when he had that match with Cena, my immediate thought was that was such a phenomenal match to put in the belt on him next time. And they never did, So I was like, I was built up for it. Like, I was really thinking that they were going to do that at that time period.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny, too, because people mention the personality thing. And, obviously we've all had more time than normal, with all the pandemic stuff, not being able to go do things. So one of the things that I started to watch was Xavier Woods' YouTube channel to pass the time a little bit. And he plays like video games and like board games with Adam Cole, Cesaro, and Tyler Breeze. And
that's pretty interesting.
It really is. And like, obviously if you don't like video games, but if you're like a big wrestling fan, like, I would say just give it a shot, just because the banter between those guys is hysterical. Like, and Cesaro just shows so much personality on that channel. It's like, if you could just take like just a fraction of that and put it into his wrestling persona, you got a star.
You might get him over. All right, that's pretty interesting. One of the things that a lot of the companies are doing, they can't have live crowds, or even some of the indie wrestlers and some of the organizations, they're doing creating online content and some sort of online content to try to keep the names out there, to keep interest in there. And I think that's been a really good thing for the scene in general. because they can't run
Absolutely.
events. They can't run events, but I mean, they're because they don't have the money at AEW or WWE or Impact to the sponsorships to throw the money into to continue TV taping. So, what's some of your favorite outside of Xavier Woods? What are some of your favorite online streamers, whether it be Twitch or YouTube or what have you, that you're
Yeah,
keeping
I
up with?
mean, what do I do? I watch. I get most of my wrestling news from this group from actually a bunch of British guys called Cultaholic, and so they
Okay.
put out these news videos that come out every morning. So it's like as I wake up, as I'm
Right.
getting dressed in the morning, I'll just throw on the news video. It's like usually about 15 minutes long. So by the time I brush my teeth, throw on my clothes and whatnot, I got all my wrestling news for the day
Right.
from that. So they're pretty good. Obviously, I shouldn't say. Well, before I moved, I had about a 25 minute half hour drive to work, depending on how long the lines were for coffee. So,
It's the
so
most important part of my day is the
oh,
coffee. Literally. So,
if I don't have it, I'm donezo. You don't
yeah,
want to be around me. But
I drink about a pot of coffee myself a day, and and at night I've been drinking iced coffee, which is such a bad thing because I end up waking up staying awake super late.
oh yeah,
so,
oh
so
yeah,
go ahead.
oh
Sorry
yeah.
about that. Go ahead, bud.
No, it's
So,
all good. But now I'm much closer to work, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep up with the volume I did. But I've listened to a lot of the Conrad Thompson podcasts.
right. Yeah.
I think he does a great job, with all the research he does to get the stories out of whether it's Jim Ross, Bruce Pritchard, Arn Anderson, Shivani,
Yeah.
whoever. He's got a great dynamic with all those guys, and those are a lot of fun to listen to. They're long as hell, but they're a lot of fun to listen to.
They really are. Speaking of the Arn Anderson one, I got this recently, not so long
Hey,
ago. That's they
nice,
would use that for the podcast, that logo, for a while. So
cool.
um Arn Anderson, I've said this many times, is my favorite wrestler of all time. Chris Benoit is number two, but Arn is, to me, is the greatest. So
Hmm.
you know, so yeah, I think that's a really good podcast. Is the one with Conrad? It's just sometimes Arn does not have a very exciting voice, so it's
Yeah,
not. He has some good stories. He's just not delivering them very well. So
right, right. Well, it's kind of the opposite with Shivani. Shivani sometimes doesn't have the best stories, but he's got a good delivery. So it's
I think I never knew until Shivani started doing a podcast that Shivani was as funny as he was, or that much of a dick, like in real life. Because I find it
right.
hilarious that he really is, because he always just seemed kind of like a nerd, like a nerdy or straight
Right, like
straight
the
guy.
straight man, yeah, and then
Yeah,
all
but
that.
and he comes in here, he says the most ridiculous stuff on his podcast sometimes, and it's really
Talking about porn stars being fans of the
yeah,
show, like
yeah, it's hilarious. His time, I like. I don't know if you did. You ever listen to Sean Mooney's podcast when it was around?
no,
Tony was a guest on there one time. And it's just that Tony talked very negatively about having to live in Connecticut while during his WWF run, saying that basically he wasn't getting paid enough to keep a house in Connecticut, which I found interesting for such a large company, because at that time I think WWF was, during that golden era, was one of the biggest peaks in 1989 to 1980 or 1990 rather. So that I mean, I know Connecticut's expensive, but that was just wow to hear that working for WWF, that he couldn't afford to keep his house in state. So
oh yeah, oh yeah,
yeah.
but yeah, no, going, yeah, listen to those podcasts. Chris Jericho, it's been hit or miss lately, but I mean, every now and then he still, especially too that he gets like a lot of the rock and metal people on there too. That
There's sorry to cut you off, but
no, go ahead.
some of the music ones he does is really good, because it's usually like one episode is like wrestling related, but he's also had people like in that do like supernatural thing,
Yeah.
involved in like supernatural, and sometitimes they come on and it's very interesting.
Mm.
But like I said, his podcast is really hit or miss, because sometimes I'll really enjoy it, and then there's other times he just talks about himself way too much, and then and we went on this whole rant last week on this show about like how I can't stand how he talks about himself so much. Like,
Hey, Rick, did you know that Chris Jericho invented 3 matches that are now WWE playsets?
is this real or are you joking?
According to him, it is.
Oh really? Oh really?
Well, that's the only reason I say, because
Actually, you know what?
I have another friend who's really big into into his podcast. He's just a big Jericho fan in general, like big fan of his wrestling, Fozzy, et cetera, et cetera. But I just brought it up because there was literally about 3 podcasts in a 2-week span where he mentioned to the guest that he
really
helped create 3 matches that are now WWE playsets.
That's interesting. I must have missed those. So I haven't listened to it in a while, but I want to go back because Thunder Rosa is on one of his most recent.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to that one yet.
And I'm a huge fan of hers. So
I don't know if she still does, but she followed me on Twitter for a while, so that was kind of.
She follows me. She follows me, which I thought was very interesting because I never knew it, and I just went to go check something. She's following me. Holy shit! Like she never likes anything of mine.
Right.
It's like
still.
So yeah. Yeah. So, what's your favorite social media accounts, like as far as wrestling goes?
That's really tough.
It really is.
Yeah, because for as much fun and insightful that Twitter can be, it can also be the most toxic by far.
It's very stressful.
Yeah.
So I try to back off a lot and just, the only thing I do nowadays is post these episodes every time they come out. I no longer try to communicate with anybody. I'll shoot messages to people, and that's about the extent of it.
Yeah, no, and it really stinks. I mean, because all I use it for is to post pictures of, my collectible stuff or my wrestling stuff. I don't want to, because if you start trying to like engage in arguments with people and stuff like that, then the next thing you know, it's like, you share one opinion that may not be popular, and then 8 people you don't know are jumping on you, and that 8 turns into 80, and then you started World War III for no reason, just because you said you didn't like somebody or something, and it's just. It's freaking stupid. And
people take things out of take it out of proportion, and then you can be called a racist, you called a fat fuck, just like anything random you called crazy. But you have to say, our good buddy Big Daddy, that's got to be my favorite social media account because he's pushing out content, and I always but there's like I said, you can start a war at any given second. It's happened to me before, and people will just start attacking my family, just searching for pictures of me and my wife, and then trying to, do random stuff. I had a guy, and I ended up having to report him because he was doing all this crazy shit to taking my pictures. So I just said, it's just social media could be the greatest thing in the world to help you grow your products, but it could also be the most evil.
Exactly, and it's just so disappointing because that's how I actually communicate with a lot of people in wrestling through Facebook Messenger is one of the greatest tools that I've had in this, and even Instagram, you connect with people, see a picture, they see a video, they'll shoot you a message, and so it's like you said, it's a tool, and it's all on how you use it, and I wish more people used it for positive means than to just push their agenda and push people's buttons, quite frankly. And it sucks, but that's 2020 for you.
It's been a crazy year. What else outside? I mean, you work, you've done a few wrestling things that 2020 would allow.
Yes, sir.
Other than that, what have you been doing during the pandemic other than, working and trying to keep busy with the other stuff?
Well, I'll tell you what, because this is something that I did on Saturday, before this past Saturday. And so just to set it up, what I'll say is, the last time I went to a drive-in movie theater before 2020, I was in single digits in terms of age. So this is 20 plus years ago now I'm talking. And for whatever reason, I don't know why I remember, but one of the movies that I remember seeing as a kid with my parents was at the some drive-in movie theater was, what was it? George of the Jungle, I think it was, with Brendan Fraser.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when it came out.
Yeah. I can't remember much from that movie, but I know that was the one. But so that's one of the things I've actually done twice this year is I've gone to see movies at actually both of the last remaining drive-ins in Connecticut, Pleasant
Right.
Valley and Mansfield, and it's something to do, and because I used to love going to see movies in the theaters.
Yeah, me
There
too.
was I would go see at least one a month,
Yeah.
up until the pandemic started, and that all went away. But one thing that was cool was the one in Pleasant Valley. The one I saw there was it was My Spy, which was supposed to be released theatrically, but then it turned into an Amazon Prime exclusive. So I
Okay.
got to see a movie on a big screen that wouldn't be released on a
Yes.
big screen otherwise,
Right.
and kind of tied in with the wrestling thing. It actually starred Dave Bautista, and it was
Oh,
kind of
okay.
like it was like one of those kind of like buddy cop type movies with
Oh, I know
you
the movie you're talking about now.
yeah,
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 I
with
saw
like
the
Andy
ads
with the
for it.
little girl and stuff like that,
Yep.
and it was corny at parts, yeah, but but Batista does really good as a fish out of water in those
Right.
types of movies. It was entertaining. It entertained me for that night, and I just recently saw the New Mutants, the X-Men movie up in Mansfield this past weekend.
Okay.
So
See, I thought there was only one drive-in left. Apparently, you just said that there was two, so that's
hmm
pretty exciting because
hmm
I haven't been to a drive-in theater since I was a little kid in the '80s. So single
yeah,
digits as well.
yeah,
Um, and I remember the last movie I saw in the drive-in was E.T. So,
wow.
so that's how far back I'm going.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
and it's such a great nostalgia feeling too. Because I mean, we talked about the
absolutely
vinyl records and the VHSs, and part of the reason that I like them is just because it gives you that nostalgic feeling, and
right.
it's just so cool. Just sit in your car or outside your car, with an AM FM battery powered transistor
Right.
radio,
Yep.
getting the audio through that, and it's just the stars are out, and it's just such a cool feeling, and
They
it's
still have the
actually something I'm probably going to keep doing, now that
really.
I've experienced it again. Yeah.
Do they have the concession stand, like the booth that you
Oh yeah.
like, just like the old days?
hmm
So there's a lot of movies that have been pushed back, until 2021 or
hmm
whenever this thing is over. I know some movie theaters are open, but they're playing all
Yep.
older movies. I know somebody that just went and saw Major League in the theater. I'm like, "Well, that movie's in the fucking theater, like again, really?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's like they're just playing old movies." And I'm like, I don't think I'd waste my time to go see that movie in the theater, but
Yeah.
whatever. I
Yeah.
barely watch it when it's on cable. But a lot of movies were supposed to be, theatrically released. I just watched two movies this past week. One of them was supposed to be theatrically released, but I went. Is it Amazon? I don't remember where, but I found it online.
Yep.
Did you watch the third Bill and Ted movie? Did you see that yet? Uh,
What was that? You shorted out a little
the
bit there for a
oh,
second.
sorry, probably connection issue. The Bill and
Oh,
Ted
it's all
movie
good.
the Bill and Ted movie that came out. Did you
You
watch
know
that?
what's funny is that's playing in Mansfield next weekend. So,
Oh, okay.
and here's the thing, because I I'm one of those people that like so bad they're good movies, and
Yeah.
so the Mansfield has three screens, and the new Bill and Ted is one of them. So, and the one of the other ones is Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, and
Okay. Okay.
so that's by far the cheesy. Well, it's debatable, but it's cheesy, but in a fun way, and
Right.
that's part of its charm, and it's one of my favorite ones in that franchise. So
Okay.
it's I'm fighting because, like I said, I just moved into the condo, so I've been spending money getting things, that
Right.
I
Yeah.
need, like, so I'm debating on whether or not I want to spend the money and go first, and then if I do, it's like, which one do I watch? Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, or do I watch a new Bill and Ted? Like it's a much harder decision than it should be, and I don't
The
know what to do yet.
I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this much. The Bill and Ted was hard to sit through, especially seeing
Really?
like I grew up on the first two movies and I watched them all the time on cable. And I'm just like, they're grown adults acting exactly the same as they did back then. So it's just really really odd. Another movie I watched right after that in the same day was that David Arquette documentary on his journey into professional wrestling. Have you seen it yet?
I have not. I have a digital copy of it, so it's my intent to watch it. I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
It's an amazing documentary. I mean, I'm gonna tell you now, I really, really enjoyed that. So I would watch it again. It's hilarious. You know, he's very comical, and it's funny because everybody in his family and stuff thinks he's nuts at like 48 years old getting into professional wrestling. You know, whatever.
Hey, I got to give the guy all the credit in the world because
absolutely,
you know, he even acknowledges that the WCW situation that he was in was a complete mess. And just the fact that he wanted to go out and redeem himself by doing it the right way, going through the indies, and that's just it takes a lot of balls to do that. And so I give him a lot of credit.
I just got to say this: it's not his fault. You know, he's just doing what he was told to do, and you know, it's just. But people are right off the bat in the beginning of the documentary. They're like, "He killed WCW. It was his fault." He's just getting paid to do whatever he's doing, you know. So,
yeah.
But he donated all the money. He donated. Yeah, that was a lot worse. He donated all the money that he made in WCW to, like, you know, Brian Pillman's family apparently, and you know, and other families and such, the wrestlers that had passed their families. So, anyways, Matt, do you have anything else to add tonight?
Well, let's see. I'm just gonna do a couple cheap plugs on what I got coming up next.
Absolutely.
Yes, the next place that Matt Dacorte will be as of right now is I believe it's the. Hold on, let me check my trusty calendar here. Yes, Saturday, September 26th. I believe that's in a couple weeks. I'll be back at Ryder's Bar and Smokehouse up in Thomaston for Test of Strength, Fight for Your Dreams 3. That's shaping up to be a heck of a card. So if you're able to, they got it's an outdoor event that's going to be under pavilion. Last time it was great atmosphere. A lot of people came out. Looking forward to another good show with Test of Strength. And then after that, October 3rd, we have the Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame ceremony.
I'm looking forward to that one.
Oh, absolutely. We got
we
got the 4 previously announced inductees: Big Steve Tracy, Paul Perez, the Guardian of Chaos, Big Daddy, Sergeant Murray, and I just read today that the 5th inductee is Mario Mancini. So,
congratulations, gentlemen.
Yep, absolutely. Big congrats to all of them. Looking forward to seeing their inductions, and also I think there's going to be a few matches that night as well.
Okay, that's great to hear.
Yeah, so definitely looking forward to that. And after that, PAPW will be back for an outdoor event at our home away from home, the Annex Hall. And that's shaping up to be really good too. I think Trayvon Jordan's on that card. Nutrius X is going to be back. You know, all the PAPW originals, all the PAPW favorites. Richard Holiday, I believe, is going to be there. MLW star Richard Holiday. So that's shaping up to be good, and a lot of the PAPW guys too are going to have signed with the North American Wrestling Alliance (NAWA). They're going to be coming back. If you're a fan of old school wrestling, I know you are, Rick. So that'll be right up your alley, and I hope it'll be right up some other people's alleys as well. So definitely support all these promotions. Blood, Sweat, and Tears will be back soon. I'm just waiting to hear back from them on the date. Flash Waller's going to be taking on Lucas Chase. That, like I said, that's been brewing. That's been really awesome. So there's a lot of good things in the pipeline coming here in Connecticut in terms of local wrestling. So, and I'm very glad to be a part of it, and I hope I can continue to be a part of it for as long as I can. And I hope I can continue to see you and a lot of all the other regulars at all the events.
I'm gonna be at any show I can get to. You know that.
Absolutely, my friend.
Especially the Paradise Alley shows. One more thing. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on the interwebs?
Absolutely. You can find me on Facebook. I am Matt Dacorte, Dacorte. If you need to remember my last name, a friend of mine in college used to say, if you got a ticket, you take it to Dacorte. I know, cheesy as hell, right? But anyways, so I am Matt Dacorte on Facebook, Dacorte. You can find me at MJDacorte on Twitter and Instagram. Like I said, I just post, pictures of me in a suit with a microphone, yelling people's names, or stuff that's in my various collections. So if you're a fan of geek culture and pro wrestling, definitely check it out.
Well, there you go. Matt, thank you so much for coming on, buddy.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Rick. It was an absolute pleasure. I loved it.
Thank you.
That's all, folks.